Hello and welcome to Out Motorsports. My name is Tyler and today we're in the 2021 Lexus ES 250 all-wheel drive. The ES 250 is all new for 2021 and hasn't been a Lexus nameplate since the brand's debut in the 1990s. 30 years later, this car is back with a similar story to its predecessor. Just like the original, this car shares underpinnings with its Toyota relatives. In this case, it's the TNGA-K platform. That platform is also shared with the Avalon TRD and the Camry TRD that we drove last year. However, this car forfeits that sweet-sounding V6 for a 2.5-liter four-cylinder, but they all start within around $5,000 of each other. So today, we're going to see if Lexus luxury and all-wheel drive practicality is worth forfeiting that sweet-sounding V6. The big story with this new ES 250 is its standard all-wheel drive. The all-wheel drive system in this car is also shared with the new Toyota RAV4. In fact, the entire drivetrain of this car is shared with the Toyota RAV4. It is a 2.5-liter four-cylinder. It makes 203 horsepower and 184 foot-pounds of torque. The all-wheel drive system in this case only sends power to the front wheels until it senses slip. And then Lexus claims it can send or do an even 50-50 torque split front to rear. We were actually able to test that out a little bit earlier this week when we got some snow. Try your best to pay attention to the front and rear wheels at the same time. You'll notice the front spins first, but the rear isn't far behind, maybe a quarter turn at most. Oh, and one other thing, look at the speed at which both axles are spinning. The wheels are spinning at roughly the same pace. Rough science, I know, but it's something, right? We got about 6 inches of snow that day, and this car did really well. It never put us in a position where we thought that we were going to get stuck. We did have to keep momentum up a little bit, but that was more due to the all-season tires and less the all-wheel drive. Obviously, when you're in that amount of snow, winter tires of some sort will always give you more traction, but in this case, the amount of snow that you'll be able to go through due to the front bumper clearance, with these all-season tires, this car can handle it no problem. And we are enthusiasts after all, so it would be wrong of me to not see if this all-wheel drive system is just biased enough to give us some slides. I will say, it does give you some slides. It'll let the rear end step out a little bit, but the lack of us being able to fully disable stability control reins it back in very quickly, and it felt like as soon as the car realized that I was going sideways and the front needed more grip, it sent it there. So while this isn't necessarily tuned for fun snow hooning, it's tuned for the everyday driver that this car is, and in that case it will keep you safe and shouldn't give you any surprises in any slippery conditions. When it's not snowy and icy and you're driving this car the way that you would 99% of the time, unless you are really in a northern climate, it feels very good. Our loaner has the optional F-Sport suspension, and even though this suspension isn't quite as tuned as the Avalon TRD and the Camry TRD that we were in last year, it still does a pretty good job. The Avalon and Camry had bigger roll bars and more chassis stiffening, and that's noticeable. Like, you definitely feel that when you get in this car that doesn't have that. However, the buyer for this car is never going to notice that. Something that the buyers of this car will pay attention to, however, is the ride quality. I feel like everything we have driven on this TNGA-K platform has very similar ride quality. The F-Sport suspension in this car, I'm sure, makes it feel a little bit stiffer than the standard suspension that this comes with. And the only thing that I have to compare this to are the TRD models of this chassis in the Toyota lineup. Comparing the two, this car definitely feels a little bit softer around town, but the difference is pretty negligible. So from an enthusiast standpoint, I would prefer the chassis and suspension of the Avalon TRD because on the off chance I do find myself on a twisty road or want to throw the car around an on-ramp or an off-ramp with some speed, that Avalon TRD with the chassis stiffening and the bigger roll bars and dampers and springs does feel a little bit better in that scenario. However, like I said, the person that buys this car specifically isn't going to really do that. And for what you get, the ride comfort is great, especially on Northeast roads during the winter. And I don't think anybody would have anything to complain about here. The transmission in this car is an 8-speed automatic, and it does very well. In automatic mode, the 1 to 2 shift sometimes feels a little bit jerky, but everything after that is completely fine, and I've only ever really noticed that when I'm in a weird, like, partial throttle situation. In manual mode, the paddles in this car respond very well. They remind me a bit of the Avalon TRD that I was in the fall of last year. The upshifts may even feel a little bit quicker, and the downshifts feel a little bit better as well. The reason I wish that they were shorter ratio, though, is because of this drivetrain. In a premium sedan or in a Lexus, you don't really expect to hear the 4-cylinder that you hear in this car. Power is adequate. It's surely not fast, but around town you do just fine. However, it's a little bit noisy. You get in this car and the soundtrack and the audible experience doesn't really match the upscale interior that Lexus was able to create here. The interior of this car is, in my opinion, worlds nicer than the Avalon TRD, which was very nice to begin with. Not much seems to be shared, if anything, in this interior. So even though they are platform mates, Lexus has done a very good job in trying to make this feel like a Lexus on the inside. The most notable thing with this interior is this F-Sport wheel. It's solid, it is heated, the paddles feel great. It's something that you touch all the time, and every time you touch it, it feels upscale and of quality. Basically everything in here is soft touch, down to the dashboard between the radio controls and the seat heater controls, which leads me to an important point. This car has a lot of physical controls that I really, really like. A lot of people will talk badly about the infotainment system in this car, which we'll get to in a second. However, no matter how good the infotainment system in a car is, I always would prefer real physical buttons for things such as climate control, temperature, fan speed, where the air is coming out of the vents, especially for things like your heated seats, your ventilated seats, your heated steering wheel. Having to go through a menu to figure all of these things out is distracting, takes a lot of time, and quite honestly, I feel like it's unsafe. Lexus made those all hard buttons or knobs, and it's great. It makes getting in this car and using the basics of it very, very simple. The infotainment itself does leave a little bit to be desired, but I don't think it's as bad as everybody else will lead you on to believe. Once you're in this car and you get to use it, it is quite intuitive after you learn it. You really only have 4 axes of movement. You have up and down and left and right, and you can't, except for like when you're in a map setting, you can't pinpoint or fine-tune where your cursor is. So you only have that up, down, left, right movement. So no matter what you do, you're eventually going to get to where you want to be. This car came with the upgraded Mark Levinson audio system as well as the navigation. I can't really comment on the navigation built into this car, but I will say, if you're an audiophile and you like to listen to your music, the Mark Levinson's audio system is surely worth the upgrade. This sounds great to me. It's a good sounding audio system, but anything less I think would leave me wanting more. So overall, the 2021 Lexus ES 250 all-wheel drive is a quiet, comfortable, reliable, and capable daily driver. Just like the original car back in the 90s, this car slots perfectly between the upper offerings of Toyota and the more pure Lexus offerings in their lineup. It is up to you to decide whether you want the sporty V6 version or the luxurious, good-looking, and capable Lexus. If you like this video, please don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell. If you want to support Out Motorsports, we have a link below for some t-shirts and decals. And if you want to join us on the fun, please check out our Rainbow Road RallyCross that we're holding this August. You guys can come, have a good time, and throw some cars around in the dirt with us. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.